I think legitimately the Wolfpack have a chance to win 10 games for the first time since 2002.
Agreed.
So that I think is the obvious one. And as the questioner said, we've gone over it. They've got a good quarterback. They've been good the last few years. Clemson is on shakier ground, I think, than it's been at any other time. I just think that they're poised to have it wouldn't even be a breakout season because of how well they've played. I just think that they could peak this year.
Well, yeah, it would be the most, to your point, the only time they've never finished in the top 10 of the AP poll ever.
Correct.
I think that's
happen
possible
this year. Yeah,
that could happen this year. They have one double-digit win season back in 2002 with Phillip Rivers. Like, it is possible for sure. This is not just one of the best NC State seasons in a decade, but one of the best NC State seasons in program history. And it wouldn't be, like you said, wouldn't be a breakthrough because the 2020 season, the 2021 season is very much been building to this point. But yeah, because there's a question in the chat right now. Why so much hype for NC State? NC State returns a ton of experience off a defense that rated in the top 10, top 12 nationally last season. They had a bunch of injuries, and even when the backups came in, they were still very productive and very good. Their offense actually wasn't awesome last year, big picture, but their quarterback is. And when we start to look at winning games on a schedule that for NC State projects to have a lot of coin flip games, I'll tell you what's a good recipe to win games: having a good defense and a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Threw for 35 touchdowns to 5 interceptions last year. He takes care of the ball. He's good in the red zone. Devin Leary and that NC State defense are good enough for NC State to be a part of this.
Yeah, and then Devin Leary will go to the NFL and will have to deal with a decade of Will Brinson saying that he's a Hall of Famer and better than Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, what a burden for Devin Leary to bear. I also had Miami. So Miami made the ACC championship game back in 2017. They had that really fast start, undefeated, 10-0, corked it a little bit near the end of the season. But I think that there's a potential that this team could be better, and the result of making it to the ACC championship game could be matched. I thought that the offense for that 2017 Miami team was very, very patchwork, and they were just kind of making it happen defensively, and then being able to figure out just enough. I think with Tyler Van Dyke, with Jalen Knighton, with the way that they've sort of built out the wide receiver room, where I do admit that there are some questions. You've got a really, really solid offensive line. And then defensively, I love the combination of transfers that have come in, along with some, sophomores like Leonard Taylor, James Williams, players who were very highly rated from the previous regime, and I think flashed a little bit last season. So I think that while Miami this season could match those results and maybe even match that win total, I do think that it's going to be a better team than it was back in 2017.
It could be. I think, like you mentioned, in 2017, they reached number 2 in the AP poll. I don't think that is in Miami's 2022 season, but you and I were on HQ last night, and we were asked, for betting odds, just like for conference futures. I thought Miami was the best value on the board in the ACC as far as winning the conference. Doesn't mean I think it's going to happen. So I do think Miami is capable of winning the ACC this year. And if it does, obviously, yeah, that would trump winning 10 games and being number 2 in the AP. Winning your conference would be your best season in 10 years by far. So I don't think it's an awful pick at all, or even a bad pick. I think it's a good pick. I think NC State's the more likely scenario here.
All right. Who else did you have on your radar?
I kind of wondered if Jordan is the one that submitted this question, just Tennessee, crossing his fingers, getting us to hope that we would say Tennessee. But in the SEC, looking around, of any team that I feel like is poised to have its best season in a decade, and a lot of teams are eliminated from this because a lot of SEC teams have had really good seasons in the last decade.
I was thinking, Mississippi State, if you want to get in on Mississippi State, but they had the DAC years where they were awesome and winning 10 games and getting to the Orange
Bowls. Yeah. So it's for Tennessee, they haven't had that in a long time. So I think Tennessee is the best answer in the SEC, but I'm not confident in it happening because I watched Tennessee last year and they were a lot of fun and I enjoyed it, and they score a lot of points, but they still give up just as many. And I don't know if they're going to make the kind of improvement defensively that you're going to need playing in the SEC to win on a weekly basis, or if they're just going to be entertaining. So I don't know if they're going to be any different than they were last year. So I think they're the best candidate, but I don't think it's going to happen.
you just barely get to rule out the peak of Spurrier, South Carolina with the 10-year cutoff. So depending on like how flexible you want to be with that and what you think Spencer Rattler and year 2 of Shane Beamer is going to look like, maybe you could throw me a South Carolina. I would hear that. But that in the SEC, it was very tough because SEC teams have had a lot of success over the last 10 years.
In the Big Ten, I have 2. I have
Purdue?
one. I have one. No, I don't. I'm down on Purdue this year, but I have one that I think is the most likely, and then one very dark horse. The one I think is most likely is Minnesota, in that I know they won 10 or 11 games the other year, got to the Outback Bowl, beat Auburn, but I think Minnesota could win the division this year. I think that the division is very open. I think Wisconsin is your favorite. I think Iowa is still very good, but I don't see either of those teams being dominant. And I think Minnesota, if things break right, could end up winning that division. They almost won the division last year. So regardless of record, if they win the division and get to the Big Ten championship, it's the best year Minnesota's had in at least a decade, probably much longer. The other one, though, the one on the East, Maryland. They're going to have an explosive offense. They've got the quarterback with the YOLO properties needed. They've got really good receivers. I don't expect them to have a great season because there's kind of a ceiling as to what you can do when you've got to butt your head up against Michigan State, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. But like they went 7-6 last year. I could see them pulling off an upset here and there, maybe getting to 8 wins, 9 wins, which would be, for the most part, like maybe not the last decade, but definitely their most exciting season as a Big Ten school.
Big Ten. Yeah.
So I include them.
You've got to go back, I think, to 2012 to get them like right at the 10-year mark for that we're operating here for when Maryland was like 2011, 2012. Maryland was flirting with ACC championship contention the last time out. So best of as a Big Ten member would be significant.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any Big Ten teams?
No, I was going to say Purdue, because while we get excited, we got excited about Purdue's success, the actual like win total and, where they have been in the Big Ten West race, like that we still haven't. It's the Minnesota proposition where Purdue doesn't have the 11-win season back in 2019 that Minnesota does, but it also has that same claim of has not finally broken through and been able to win the division since the elimination of legends and leaders.
See, my skepticism about Purdue is basically on the defensive side of the ball. Like, I know they lose a lot on offense, but I don't really worry about a Jeff Brom offense. And there's been a direct correlation between Brom's best years at Purdue and the down years with how well the defense plays. If the defense is playing well, they win. If it's not, they don't. And I don't know that Purdue, given what they lost from that defense, obviously Karlaftis is the big name, but there are other players on there that are gone who aren't back. I'm skeptical that team's going to be able to play at the same rate. I think they're going to a bowl, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they're winning 9 games. So I think last year will be better than this year, so I can't really consider them. In the Big 12, like Kansas State was the team that popped to me first because we talked about it a little bit yesterday, how everybody kind of considers them a dark horse, but 10 years ago they went 11-2 and nearly made the BCS. I don't think that's happening this year, so it wouldn't be the best season of the decade. So I think the best team in the Big 12 or the best candidate for this is Texas Tech. I think we kind of touched on it earlier. Like Texas Tech is going to be getting back to what Texas Tech was when Texas Tech was at its funnest and most entertaining. Zach Kitley is coming in. We saw what he was doing with the offense at Western Kentucky. He's going to be running the offense there. McGuire has obviously kind of injected some life into the program, getting some excitement going. People are pumped. I think Donovan Smith at quarterback was somebody most college football fans aren't really familiar with, but was very good for the Red Raiders last year. And I think in that offense, he's somebody who could have a monster season. So if there is, like we saw last year, Oklahoma State and Baylor both making the Big 12 championship. If there is a dark horse kind of Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Baylor team this year to sniff the Big 12 championship that nobody sees coming, I think that's Texas Tech. I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think this is going to be a fun, entertaining team that could win 8 or 9 games.
I didn't have anybody in the Big 12 that jumped out at me. In the Pac-12, you've got to go right to the 10-year cutoff. But Oregon State could win 8.
Yes.
Yeah. Oregon, so in 2012, Oregon State went 9-4. They finished in the top 20 under Mike Riley. Top 20 finish in the AP poll. I can fill out 20 teams that I think I would project are going to finish in the top 20 before I get to Oregon State. However, being able to get to a bowl game, being able to win 8 or 9 games, especially when you consider that, since then you had a long bowl drought for Oregon State, where from 2013 to just last year, where Jonathan Smith led the Beavs to a 7-win season on into the LA Bowl, we didn't have any bowl games at all. I think Oregon State is absolutely bowling and should flirt with that 8-9 win kind of mark for the first time in 9 or 10 years.
100% agreement. They were my Pac-12 school. And part of it is, like, for everything you said, I think that this is just a program that, outside the COVID year had already been on a good trajectory under Jonathan Smith. And I think we're going to continue to see that kind of improve a little bit this year. But another factor is, who else in the Pac-12 do you even think fits this description?
Well, and some of it's because of also success, like Washington, Oregon, been to the college football playoff in the last 10 years. You're not going to do that. So when you look at the teams in the Pac-12 that have room to grow, none of them really give you reason to be optimistic that it's going to happen this season. Washington State had a top 10, top 11 season under Mike Leach, so it's not going to be them. Colorado made it to the daggum Pac-12 championship game. Not going to be them. So it is both with confidence and support for Jonathan Smith and Oregon State that we are both on the Beavs, but it is also acknowledging that the other options are a little bit limited. So the live chat has mentioned Arizona a good bit, and we are very much on the record with
best one-win team
with Arizona, the best one-win team in the entire country. So when I was going through to look it up, 2014 provides a little bit of a hiccup, because in 2014, Arizona not only won the Pac-12 South, they won 10 games, and they went and made it to the Fiesta Bowl that season.
That was Scooby Wright and Khalil Tate, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
No. I don't know if it was Khalil Tate.
No, it wasn't Khalil Tate. It was definitely Scooby Wright, who was tearing it up in the USFL this year, by the way, just dominating. That was some guys right there with the USFL. Scooby Wright and that Arizona team. Anyway, because that was in 2014, I threw them out. Do I see big improvements for Arizona? Yes. Do I think that they are going to jump up and win 10 games?